All right, let's turn to the United States now. Republicans on the House Ethics Committee have voted against releasing a report on the panel's long-running investigation into Matt Gaetz, President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General. The Ethics Committee has been examining allegations that Gaetz engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use. Gaetz resigned from Congress last week after Donald Trump picked him to be the next Attorney General. For a deeper look, we're joined now by Todd Zwillich. He is a Washington-based journalist and joins us tonight from that city. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Travis. Good to be with you.
Okay, so the House Ethics Committee has wrapped up with no agreement on whether or not to release this report on Matt Gaetz. Obviously, Republicans don't want it released. They're reconvening on the 5th of December. What's at stake here, depending on this outcome?
Well, Matt Gaetz' nomination for one. Now, this is the House. We should say that the Ethics Committee has stalled out. Republicans have blocked release of this report, but there are a couple of Democrats who are now vowing to try to get a full House vote on the floor within the next day. There's some controversy about how fast that can happen. If that were to happen, the whole House could order this report released. If that vote were to come to the House floor, you would be putting a lot of Republicans on the spot, right, to vote publicly about whether Matt Gaetz's allegations and the report behind them, as you mentioned, should be made public. And Matt Gaetz has a lot of enemies in the House and in the House Republican Conference. He he ruined the speakership of Kevin McCarthy. As you and your viewers may remember.
Right.
He trotted all over lots and lots of other House Republicans. So if that were to come up, we don't know if it's going to come up, but don't necessarily expect that a lot of Republicans, or a majority of them anyway, would vote to protect Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, I remember I was down in D.C. For CBC covering when McCarthy, was really getting railed against by Gaetz. Let's back up for a minute, though, because let's talk about this nomination in the first place. Why would Trump give Matt Gaetz or want to give Matt Gaetz such a huge position, such as Attorney General?
Well, let's look at Donald Trump's own actions and his own statements. He ran on a message of revenge. He said that he's going to use the Justice Department to get back at his enemies, people like Jack Smith, the special counsel, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, a whole host of journalists and journalistic outlets. We can go down the list. There are many more. Former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, and many others. So if Donald Trump wanted to use the Justice Department as his personal agency of personal revenge through the legal system, he would want a staunch, unquestioning, sycophantic loyalist to head up that agency, and Matt Gaetz would foot that bill. Matt Gaetz was on the forefront of apologia for January 6th. He asked for pardons on 2 different occasions, according to testimony in the January 6th committee, and he has allegations of sexual abuse, potential sex trafficking, as you mentioned, against him as well, which he has steadfastly just flown in the face of and gotten Donald Trump's support in spite of them. So if you run on a mandate, not a mandate, but if you run on a message that you're going to use federal agencies as as the locus of your personal vendettas and your personal agenda, not your political, but your personal agenda, then Matt Gaetz would be perfect for that.
So you're saying that he's basically a yes man? And we know Donald Trump likes loyalty. Is it unfair? Is it an unfair assessment to think that, that is the lens in which all of these major positions, these cabinet positions are being looked at, they need to fall in line whenever it comes to what Donald Trump thinks is the best course of action? Or do you think that the president-elect wants people in his circle that will disagree with him?
Certainly not the latter. I think the answer to the former is yes and. So loyalty first, always. There is no pick. We can go down the high-profile national security and legal appointments and say loyalty first, sycophancy first. It helps if you've been on Fox News and he likes to see you on Fox News. Secretary of State, a little bit different. Marco Rubio is a staunch Trump supporter and has checked a lot of his criticisms at the door after Trump humiliated him in the 2016 primary. But at the same time, he also does have legitimate experience in foreign affairs on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, major experience in Western Hemisphere affairs. So yes, and in the case of Marco Rubio. In the case of the others, I think sycophancy and loyalty first, plus the ability to really not just be controversial. That's not the point here. The point is to be the antithesis of what these agencies stand for. Matt Gaetz, as Attorney General, somebody again who has worked hard to excuse January 6 rioters, which Donald Trump says he will do, has asked for pardons himself, maybe guilty of child sex trafficking, though we should add that he was never charged, even though the Justice Department looked into him. RFK Jr., who has spent years and years and years trafficking in pseudoscience, not even pseudoscience, but myths, undermining faith in vaccines, which any public health expert will tell you helps to destroy decades of work to build faith and credit for childhood vaccination, which has saved millions and millions of lives. The only thing that results from undermining vaccinations is, I'm sorry to say, dead children. Tulsi Gabbard is the head of the Directorate of National Intelligence, who has trafficked in Russian talking points and who has visited Bashar al-Assad and blamed Americans for his atrocities on multiple occasions. These choices, for whatever else they're worth, are intended to be the antithesis of the agencies they're meant to head up.
And you know, clearly the voters in the United States wanted change. If it's change they wanted, it's change that looks like they're going to get when it comes to some of these really important positions. I want to talk about something that's getting a lot of attention here in Canada. Of course, that is trade and tariffs. Trade and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, that is a name that we are hearing. He's Trump's pick. What's behind that choice? Give us a little bit of a 101 on who he is.
Well, they're buddies. Lutnick fits the bill that we mentioned before. He is a staunch supporter. He is loyal. He's the head of the Trump transition right now. Has been on TV a lot, defending Trump especially, but also his trade proposals, including tariffs. And that's a tough one. You're going to see this with whoever Trump comes up for Secretary of Treasury as well. He needs people in these positions who support his tariff ideas, but can also defend them to markets and defend them to other governments that we trade with, Canada, China especially. Now, China's not going to like the tariff policy, and maybe it's intended to push them into a more favorable negotiation. I guess we'll find out. The markets hate it, and I can prove it because the bond market is showing that it's not interested in a long-term inflationary strategy like tariffs. But Lutnick is a supporter, and he has the bona fides of a captain of industry and corporate captain of industry. So if he's confirmed as Commerce Secretary, and I have no reason to believe he won't be, he will be overseas. He will be in Ottawa. He will be in Beijing, trying to put the hammer down on an aggressive new trade policy that Donald Trump favors. But yes, loyalty first and TV talent second.
Okay, Todd, we'll got to leave it there. We'll have a lot more time to talk about more nominations, more positions being filled as that happens, but we will pause the conversation for there right now. That is Todd Zwillich, a Washington-based journalist joining us from D.C. tonight.